afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this regularly scheduled April 12th, 2022 meeting of the Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation. The meeting is now called to order, and we do have a quorum of 6 members. Our next item of business is our public communication. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public that would like to come speak to our board. We would appreciate hearing what you have to say. Is there anybody that would like to speak to the board? Hearing none, I can say I appreciate those of you who have come to listen and that are here in the audience, so thank you. Number 3 are the minutes, and we received those from Stephen, and we are to consider the approval of the minutes for the Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation held on March 28, 2022. Do we have any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, what is the wish of the board?
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. With that, one more time for opportunities for questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Everyone is in favor. The vote is 6-0. Moving down to number 4, we get to discuss and take the possible action regarding the downtown signage and branding project. And this part is exciting. Stephen?
So, I would just like to thank everybody for being here this afternoon. Happy to be here myself. Glad to see everybody. Let everybody know that Ron did email in and say that he would not be able to make it. But exciting part is for today is that the street signs that were ordered have been delivered. And so we do have them. Our Public Works department, they're going to be scheduling the installation of those signs as soon as the sidewalk work is complete and the new signals go in. We are looking to install new stop signs on the cross streets. They're a little bit larger, and they are the new TxDOT specification. And then we're going to price out the black powder-coated poles instead of the normal stainless steel poles to see if we can get them to match the new mast arms if the price comes in as a kind of a similar cost. And then, of course, TxDOT will be placing the new larger signs up on the mast arms. And you will be absolutely surprised at how large these things are once they get up there. And I would, if you'll allow me.
We have one.
These are hot off the fabricator, and they are, this is just for one of the cross streets, if you think about it.
Nice.
Exactly. And so for those that haven't seen one of these in a while up close,
Our orange really works.
It's for the Astros.
I'm trying my best.
It's for the Astros.
It's a good thing you're colorblind, Bubba.
It's-
so we are very excited that they came in so quickly. And so they're all over our Public Works facility. And so as soon as they're able to, they're going to get out and do the installation of those street signs.
That's wonderful. Such great news, and that's a great surprise. Thank you. And thanks to the Public Works Department for moving along with this. This will be exciting.
Just to add to the signage and branding, we do still just let the group know that we still have a lot of the decals available for any of the downtown businesses if y'all get requests or would like to take some with you at some point. And then I did distribute a good amount of these at the most recent, well, I guess at the March 9th Friends of Downtown Friendswood Association meeting. Gave them an update on the projects that are taking place for the FDEDC currently, and then passed out a ton of decals. So you should be seeing more pop up over the next few weeks.
Great. Anything else on signage and branding? Any questions? We're beyond being in the middle of it. We are on the other side, the downhill. B is to discuss and take possible action regarding the downtown lighting plan. Stephen, once again, please.
So, as was alluded to at the last meeting, we've been working hard on the RFP. It is about 99.5% complete. I did pass along this to our resident electrical expert, Mr. Paul Marks, last week to get a little bit of a head start for him. So just for the group to know, we did add the alternates as we discussed, or as the direction was given at the last meeting. So that is one, a substantial completion of the entire lighting project for downtown. Also just a certain type of pole or a certain area of town, of downtown, depending on price. So we're gonna get those spec'd out. If ever we can get everything buttoned up in the RFP, we can potentially have it advertised next week. We're going to go ahead and hope and keep our fingers crossed for the FDDC to have a chance to potentially award this at the June meeting. And of course, as has been mentioned, we're going to share the RFP with TxDOT, who has been intimately involved with this since the beginning, as has TNMP, and we'll go ahead and pass that along to make sure everybody's aware of what's taking place.
I think good communication is key. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, would you like to give us an overview?
Yeah, well, there are a few things that I noted on here. Some of them are kind of minor, and some of them I want to talk about. As far as the purpose goes, I think some of the verbiage needs to be kind of changed a little to be more specific, and such as I guess in the purpose it states that TxDOT will supply additional materials, including but not limited to wiring, meter cans, light pole foundations, light poles. I think we ought to add as specified after that, to make sure that we get the right material in there. Also, see where it says 18-inch pedestrian pole, that should be 18 foot. Also another, let's see, contractor shall return any disturbed landscape or softscape to pre-construction conditions. And I think we ought to add in there hardscapes such as pavers and concrete, be more specific there. Those are just minor things though, but then going over to the actual unit cost. I think that we'll start with the first one, the drill shaft. I think that we need to have two different drill shafts, one for the 18-foot pole, one for the 32-foot pole. There are the 18-foot foundation is going to require more conduit, more rebar. I think that should be a different cost rather than have one size fits all. I think that'll keep some of the costs down. Also, I was concerned it's they listed quantity as in linear feet for the drill shaft. I think that should be specified as like a unit cost per foundation. You'd have a little more control over that. That was one of the things. Another one, as far as the unit cost for assembling the poles. I think there needs to be a lot more detail in there. I think it ought to be the unit cost to assemble the pole, to wire the pole, to put the luminaires on, and set the pole on the foundation. All that ought to be one unit cost per pole rather than separated. And I can get with you a little more detail on that. So in other words, assembling the whole pole and setting it on the foundation ought to be one set unit cost.
Sure. I think if the, I appreciate the information, especially from somebody that's in the business. If you're open to it, I'd like to set up a meeting with our city engineer.
Right.
As I mentioned, I don't want to be the middleman in some pretty important information and that I might not fully understand myself. So I'd like to have the engineer, and then potentially if we need a consultant there with HDR or somebody there as well, we can make that happen if everybody's in agreement. That'd be good.
I think that would be a good idea to have the engineer there as well. And same with the electrical conductors. Want to make sure that it has a quantity of 3,600 feet, 7,200 feet. To me, that sounds low. We want to make sure that that's ×2 for the neutral bond wire. I know those are all separate on here, so yeah, we just need to make sure that we specify each individual unit on here before that goes out. And that's about it. Like I said, in the beginning, that was more just some minor things, but I So,
Paul, you are a real gift
Oh.
to this group, to have the knowledge and doing that, then,
I've done this a few times.
I know you have, and that's why I'm saying you are a real gift.
Oh, thank you.
Any questions for Paul about this?
Well, maybe more for Stephen, he's probably aware of it anyway. I was out in front of my office on Saturday. The TxDOT inspector happened to be there. And on the plans that's drawn for the sidewalks, there were cutouts for where the lights were to be placed. And as the sidewalks were being laid, he was going to be creating a tripping hazard at each one of those cutouts. So the state made the decision that that should be covered where it didn't create that. Also, the conduit runs down the middle of the sidewalk. So whoever installs the lights, they're gonna have to jackhammer or do whatever to that concrete over to the conduit. I don't know whether that aspect is included or not as part of installation or what.
And now that you mention it, yes, that was one of my concerns too. Not sure exactly where that conduit is. We want to make sure that they have a cone wire and a full line in that conduit. But yeah, I don't know, that is gonna be a concern. We're gonna have to cut into the conduit and elbow over to the light locations. That is gonna be something that we're gonna have to look at.
Yeah, and that's definitely a part of the returning the site to its original condition. So whether that's not just the private property to where it's we fix some landscaping or fix some pavers on private property, but also the new sidewalks, the new pavers, or anything that's been installed that way. If anything does have to be modified from its existing now, once the TxDOT project is complete, it'll go back to looking directly the same.
Yeah, I don't think there are any cutouts. I haven't seen any.
There aren't.
I haven't seen.
In the whole project. Right.
Yeah, I have not seen any either, and it seems to be a decision that TxDOT made on their own.
Okay. 'Cause that's gonna be pretty costly to saw cut all that concrete.
Yeah.
And a lot
Yeah,
of them.
I thought we had baked this into the whole project where it would be set up ready for the lights.
Well, I think what their concern was, where the cutout was going to be a hole until the lights were ready to install. And even if you did that, you're still gonna have to saw cut over to the conduit. So there was gonna be a saw cut, whatever you did. And so TxDOT decided it would saw cut once, but it's gonna be more than what was originally thought it was gonna be.
So who pays for that? Does that come back to our committee? Does it come out of the big grant? I mean, I thought the whole purpose of doing all the planning beforehand was so that we wouldn't have to come back and re-engineer or
I think that's a question that Stephen might be able to find the answer to.
It'll be something that we'll have
While we
to.
sit here and speculate, we have no idea.
Yeah, we'll have to reach out to TxDOT and see what their intentions are, and see what if anything, that's any recourse on this group's part. My expectation is what Mr. Todd has mentioned is during the on-site inspections, it's just determined that instead of leaving a hole for a potential trip hazard, that they went ahead and formed it up correctly as a full sidewalk and poured it that way.
Well,
But we can follow up and get an answer.
Well, as Trey indicated, being very familiar with construction, that's what happens during construction. You can't detail everything. And, but it's gonna be a cost. The question, whose cost is gonna be, but someone needs to address it.
Thank you. Glad you brought that up. As it would be, that happened for a good reason, for him to be out there.
Well, I was out there for another reason, because they splattered concrete all over my sign, but that's another thing.
Okay. I'm not sure we can solve that problem
You
here
can't.
this afternoon, Alton, but we appreciate you being out there trying to take care of it.
And I was real impressed with the state inspector, by the way.
Good.
He seems to be very diligent. I don't know what your experience has been with you, Stephen, but I was very impressed with him. He has been on the contractor to get it done right, and there have been issues with the contractor, as you know. From the initial contractor, there was a problem as an out-of-state bidder that didn't necessarily have on-site supervision, and so they got replaced. You know?
Well, we're glad they got replaced.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you are were pleased with the inspector.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear from an outside person. Anything else about the lighting plan? We're going to leave it with Paul to meet with the engineer, with Stephen, and get a direct communication, so Stephen doesn't feel like he's the middleman trying to convey all this, and we'll get it done right. Paul, we can't thank you enough.
All that feedback is excellent. Paul's feedback on what I think he's getting at is, he's gonna know what each unit costs, because if we had it all spread out over, it's gonna be hard for you to determine, our budget can do what section of town. If you have it by pole and unit, you're gonna figure out pretty easily, we can afford that much. So that's cool.
Yeah, for like the foundations, he just has linear feet.
Yeah.
How do you calculate that for that? No, that's.
He'd be in the situation where we have to go and figure it all out. But
Correct.
if we know what a pole costs, kind of.
Total assembly of the pole, including
Total to,
everything, standing it on the foundation.
Pat, you're right, so we wanted to pre-plumb it all, and this is where the reality is from theory, and the reality of the field is, my brain right now is saying we should have said the conduit ran down the side of the sidewalk, where you can just dig underneath it and access it. And I can tell you, this little faux pas won't be the last one, we'll run into something else. When you start putting it all together, there's just, something slips through the net.
Yeah.
You just gotta adapt.
And we appreciate you helping us adapt
Thank you.
and get some questions answered. So thank you, Stephen, too. Any other comments about the downtown lighting plan? Hearing none, let's move to item C, which is to discuss and take possible action regarding the TxDOT curbs, ramps, sidewalks, and traffic signals project.
So just a quick update. I think everybody sees the traffic snarls on occasion and has at least run into them at least once or twice here downtown. But the majority of the sidewalk construction is complete and is ready for pavers where they are going to be installed. The traffic signal material should be here by the end of April. And you can anticipate probably 4 to 6 weeks from what we've been told of testing after they've got them installed. Some testing and getting the timing worked out before they actually go live, and we'll have those up. The driveways, retaining walls, and transitions should all be completed by the end of May. I did a quick survey here during lunch today, and I believe there was only one driveway left to be poured over in front of Clutch Automotive. And then there's a few curbs and a few small walls and some stuff that need to be formed up and poured. It's very, very little compared to what they've done in just the past couple of weeks since the weather's been fairly cooperative. These are just some pictures from today. Some of this may look fairly familiar depending on what part of downtown you frequent. But they've done a great job going back in. I know there were some concerns with some elevation changes. They've gone back in and put in some fill dirt that has kind of made the grades even out and excuse me, and match up with a lot of the existing businesses. Here you can see just the full curb. If you look on the very bottom left-hand corner of the left-hand picture, you can see what was the existing sidewalk. That used to just dead end basically right there at that corner. And so you can see the full cut and new curb and ramp all the way to the new sidewalks where they'll have the pavers installed. That's right up here down the street by Firestone. These are, I think the one on the left here is at in front of Perry's. You can see where they've done the transition, and it's very slight. It's hard to notice sometimes on some of the asphalt driveways that they did, but they do have a flatter transition right there in the middle to follow the sidewalk path to keep that ADA compliant. And then you can look on the picture on the right. That is just ready for the mason folks to get out, the masonry guys to get out there and put in the brick pavers.
Nice.
Good job on sloping on the picture on the right.
That was the majority of the traffic snarls here in the last couple of weeks. They had guys out there digging out chunks of concrete, just stuff that had left over into the right of way. The guys out there just with flat shovels out there doing it by hand, and then they came back in, blocked off the street, put in some sand, put in some fill, and did a very nice job considering the machine they were using and how delicate he was using it. He's very good at his job.
You get 50 inches of rain a year. If you don't do that, that thing's
Sure.
gonna just bury that sidewalk.
And it's I've been down most of these on foot in the past couple of weeks. They're fantastic to be out on. They've There's only a couple of corner sections right now that need to be completed before theoretically you could wander all the way up and down.
Stephen, right there across the street from me, that Farmers Insurance and then the new building that was built, the transition, we were talking about transitions there. And isn't there an elevation issue on the transition from where the new construction is onto where the Farmers Insurance is? Because it's not asphalted, they've actually created a transition, but there may be a question about the elevation.
Okay, I would have to look specifically at that one side. I'm not familiar with which building it is.
It's just right across the street from me.
Okay.
It's that transition.
I would have to look and see. Are you talking about the transition from their existing sidewalk, like to their front door, down
No,
to
it's
the
not it's from sidewalk to sidewalk.
sidewalk to sidewalk? Okay, we can double check. The goal here and the project goal is to have ADA compliance from one end to the other. If it's one of the existing sidewalks to one of the new sidewalks, a transition of some sort should have been made to get there. So we can double check that for sure. And you said that was the Farmers Insurance?
Yeah, it's just right straight across. I just want to make sure that's not a cost to us.
Sure.
Good point, good point. It helps to have your business downtown.
Well,
Helps the committee.
sometimes.
Well, I know a little cement on the sign is,
Hey, it reminds me of the story of the guy in World War II where his house was blown up and there was a big hole. And he looked at it and says, I always wanted a basement. And on my sign, it kind of needed to be repainted anyway.
great attitude. Thank you, Alton. That was very nice, very nice. Anything else on the curbs and ramps, sidewalks? They're coming along beautifully. And they're moving at a good pace from my perspective. I mean, I thought it might be a little slower, but I mean, end of May is a great goal. So, anything else?
I know there was more traffic, and I saw the bobcats out there picking up all that dirt, but I just think that's a better plan in the long run, to get that. See the slope even on the left? Where
Yeah.
it's got the water running away from it? Water's what kills concrete. Water's what kills streets. And this is just a better plan.
Good
And Steve,
point.
is as far as in front of Friends Church, nothing's gonna happen there?
So nothing's going to happen as part of this project. If there's a future project, one thing to remember is that one, the trees and the impact through there, and two is that as part of this project, these sidewalks are required to be ADA compliant. And so I know there was some suggestions tossed out, potentially some crushed granite, some type of a walkway, but anything that's put in as part of this TxDOT project would have had to have been ADA compliant. And then their worry over the trees, the root systems, they just took precedent here. And in discussions with the church, through the city, and then with TxDOT, TxDOT determined just to not go across in front of the church. This does not stop the church from doing something if they would like. If they wanted to put in a continuation of the ramp and doing something on their own property. But anything that would come from this project would have to be ADA compliant, and so that was one of the main reasons why it didn't move any further.
Didn't the contractor fabricate some plates to go over those roots?
The original plan called for some metal grates being fabricated and then being put over the roots. Those can be kind of tricky. You still have to have some type of a foundation for those to sit on, and so whether that impacts the root system or not, you can only span so far before they really start to bend on you. And then you run into another issue depending on the height of those metal grates. You now have, if you can imagine, either being on crutches in a wheelchair, already going over a metal grate, and then not having almost like a tow rail where you would end up falling off the edge if you're not careful. So once all those considerations were kind of put into place, TxDOT just decided not to move forward with that.
Who pays for the prefabricated grates?
It would have been part of this project.
So it's nothing
If
we
it
have
would
to
have
worry
gone
about.
through, originally they thought it was going to be a part of the overall TxDOT grant here.
But nothing that comes out of our money.
No, sir. No, sir. The only thing thus far that FDEDC has spent on the project as it pertains to the sidewalks is some of the preliminary engineering work to make sure the conduit could go in. And then I believe it was between $8,000 and $9,000 just to have some of the existing infrastructure, water meters, valves, things like that, that had to be either raised or lowered. FDDC paid for some of that at the beginning as well.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
money well spent to get that project done out of this group's checkbook.
Yes. Very well spent, but good questions. So they erred on the side of protecting the trees,
Yes, ma'am.
basically.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And they're beautiful and we want to keep them. So, any other questions or comments about this? That was my personal opinion about the trees. But any other comments, questions? All right, let's go to reports. We are to receive, and we have it in our packet, the Downtown Economic Development Corporation Financial Report. Mr. Ray?
So, beginning fund balance for, the beginning fund balance for March 2022 was little over, well, it was $2,523,686. There was a healthy almost $50,000 in revenue for March 2022. We did have some expenditures at $752 there was just marked out for, that was from an invoice from Gandy to Lighting for some of his help consulting on the lights, and then the standard $1333 for staff services. Your ending fund balance for March 2022 was $2,571,467.
And that looks great.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing well. So for the last 2 months, if I remember right, we've been averaging about $50,000 a month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So,
The standard,
What was it in March of last year? Do you have any idea?
I would have to go back and look. I can get the number for you. If you recall, the last in February, it was kind of an outlier. It was about 79, almost 80,000. But that is high compared to a normal month. Normally, it's anywhere between 45,000 and 55,000.
good. Any other comments or questions about the financial report? Hearing none, we don't need a motion to accept this. It's just information for us to have, and we'll carry on. So that covers all of the agenda items. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh,
I'll move we adjourn.
all right. You gonna second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All the nays, please say nay. Thank you. We are adjourned.